One of the most significant components in anyone's career, really no matter what it is learning about the industry from those who have carved their own path, people who have found a level of success in doing it. How do you take an idea or a dream and then set out to accomplish it? Chasing dreams is one thing, running them down is another. And one man who had a dream, and he's been living it for the past 2 decades as the voice of the Lions, that's Dan Miller. We'll hear from him next. How he went from being a young kid growing up in the Northeast to becoming a beloved and respected member of the Detroit Lions family. Michigan State student Lyric Sloan, an aspiring sideline reporter, went one-on-one with the voice of the Lions. Lyric, good to have you in studio.
Thank you so much, Johnny. It's great to be here.
Yeah, it's good to have you in here, and it's great anytime you get an opportunity to talk with somebody like Dan. What was your biggest takeaway?
I mean, I'd say, first of all, he's so experienced. He started with the Detroit Lions the year that I was born, which is absolutely insane.
A couple years ago, yeah.
And I mean, the advice that he gave, he's so advanced. He has so much experience under his belt, and he's been through everything, through traveling to sticking to a home that he can call Detroit, and overall feeling the love from the passion of the fans. And overall, he just had really great advice to give, and he told me to never give up and to take every opportunity you get, which I think is so important because in this industry, if you aren't taking it, somebody else will. So overall, he was just a great guy.
Yeah, that's it. Authenticity is so tough to find, and sometimes you will find different egos, attached to sports, or some people talk in a different way. But the one thing I remembered, even the first time I met Dan, was like how straightforward, honest, and his passion, like he doesn't have to fake it.
And that's why he's so successful as well. I mean, he's just authentically himself, and that's why everybody loves Dan Miller. He's amazing.
We got to get our own chant started. All right, without further ado, here's Lyric Sloan's interview with the voice of the Lions, Dan Miller.
Hi, my name is Lyric Sloan, and I'm with the one and only Dan Miller. How are you doing today?
I am with the one and only Lyric Sloan, so it's great to be. I'm great. It's great to be here. Thank you for having me.
Of course. Okay, so been doing play-by-play for the Detroit Lions for 20 years.
Right.
2005, the year I was born, which is crazy.
I'm not sure how that makes me feel.
No, I mean, it's a success.
No, it's listen, you start off in this business with a dream or a vision of what you think it's going to be, and I'm blessed that I'm able to do what I do, and that to be able to do play-by-play for an NFL team, to be able to be the main anchor at a sports station, those are things that you dreamed about. I laid in bed and thought about when I was your age and younger have come true for me, and I'm blessed.
Well, that's incredible, and I'm so happy for you.
Thank you.
So your journey to the booth, I read an article about you, and you were 8 years old, and you said that this is what you knew you wanted to do. You saw guys doing play-by-play, and this was your ultimate goal. What sparked your passion for sports broadcasting?
I think it started with just a love of sports. We moved from Maryland to Virginia in 1971 when I was 8, and I fell into this amazing group of kids in a neighborhood. We all just loved sports, and that's all we did. We would leave the house, at 8:30, 9 o'clock in the morning and come home when it got dark, maybe. And we just played wiffle ball, baseball, basketball, football, just all day. And then that fed into, just devouring the sports page. We had the Washington Post in the morning and the Washington Star in the evening, and I'd wait at the end of the driveway for it. And then I started watching some of the guys on TV, and Warner Wolf was the first one that kind of caught my eye. And I just said, I don't know what it was. You're 8, 9, 10 years old, but you're looking at this guy talking about sports, and I just thought, I want to do what he does.
Well, that's incredible. Growing up playing sports, I mean, from day to night, bonding with your friends, it's a beautiful thing.
And building a passion for it. It's you're involved in it, but then it's also, you're with your friends talking about what our football team was doing, or what, the Bullets were doing in basketball, or what Maryland was doing in football or basketball or whatever. We just loved all of it. And we didn't have all the games on TV then that you have now. But what we had was a sports page, a SportsCaster where you could see some of these things. And then we had each other that we would just talk about it with. And it just became a way of life that was what we did. And that was for all of us. Now, a couple of them, one of them did go into, he's a writer for the Washington Post and very successful. And other guys didn't go into the business, but it is something that we all shared. And I think we fed into each other, and it just stayed that way for years.
So growing up, was football your ultimate goal with play-by-play?
I don't know. I loved basketball, and I did play-by-play for basketball for a number of years earlier in my career. And to be honest with you, I think the first thing that I saw was myself sitting on television doing sports. And then I think early in my career, I really got bit by the play-by-play bug. Now, when I was starting to go into press boxes and things like that, and I would see the play-by-play guys walk in, it was just like, man, it was like you heard birds singing and the angels singing when they walked in. It was like, that's a play-by-play guy, and it was really cool. Early in my career, I got the opportunity to produce college football games, 21, 22 years old, and flying around the country and going into these rabid environments, whether it was Baton Rouge, Louisiana, or Tuscaloosa, Alabama, wherever it was, and you're sitting in the booth, you're still young, you're still impressionable, and these crowds of 70, 80, 90, 100,000 people just making the hair on the back of your neck stand up, and you're like, man, I want to be a part of that.
Of course. And now you're here in the NFL with the Detroit Lions, and talk about a season that we had, the passion that not only the fans have, but you have as well, which is amazing.
Well, it's these fans. You feed off the fans. When you're at a game, you feed off your love of it, but you also feed off their passion. And whether you're home or away, there's a reason that booth in front of you is open. There's a reason there's no window that blocks you off in most stadiums. There's a reason that is open, because you want to feel that. You want to feel what's happening with that crowd, and it gets in your veins, and it just fires you up, and it's part of, just that whole experience that you take in as you do a game, and that's what you're trying to give the person at home who theoretically can't see it. Some people do watch TV while they listen to us, but that's what you're trying to give them, is just that feeling of being there. You're painting a picture so that they can almost assume that they're sitting in the stands watching the game.
There's a video of you that's my favorite. You're on the field, you're doing your show, and the crowd, a whole section, is screaming, Dan Miller, Dan Miller, for 15 to 30 seconds.
Lions, and they moved to 8-1 and win 7 in a row. These guys are unbelievable.
How does it feel that you are so loved in this community?
Well, I mean, that was obviously very humbling. It was the fact that they had won this improbable game where they didn't play their best and won the game. Look, I could never in a million years express to you what it means to be accepted the way that I've been accepted by these fans doing this team that is really their team. I'm doing this for them. And to be accepted by these fans and have that relationship that you feel like you have with them, and that bond that you feel like you have with them, it's you don't know what it's going to be when you start, but I think there's a shared experience there that is really incredible, and to feel their acceptance and know that we're going through this together, and feel that they've allowed me to take this ride with them, it's amazing. And you never lose sight of the fact that you love the job and you're blessed to have it. But winning is so much better than losing on every level. It just makes things better.
So back to your journey, what was your initial thoughts? Because you were coming from D.C. and then you landed in Detroit. So how was your journey coming to Detroit? How did you get Detroit Lions?
Well, you never know in this business where you're going to be. You go where the job is.
Exactly.
I mean, I think you might have a vision of where you think you're going to end up, but the truth is that it's a process of somebody liking your tape and then you ending up in that job. And I, early in my career, was trying to get into TV and couldn't find a job anywhere, tried to do all the things you're supposed to do and go to a small market and get a job and then maybe move. That didn't work for me. I couldn't get a job. So I ended up starting in radio, and it's a whole kind of circuitous route. I ended up kind of getting in a back door into TV. I did some roundtables, and I was covering the Washington football team and got invited to do some TV. Hey, come talk about the team. And I got an offer to go work at the Fox station in DC, and that kind of got me into television. But the Detroit thing, in August of 1997, my agent called me and said, there is a news director in Detroit that likes your tape. And we had not sent a TV tape to Detroit. It was just, they used to have things called clearinghouses where news directors can go and they'll say, I need a weather guy. and they'll say, here you go. And there was a computer you could click on. That now, all this is kind of outdated now, but they would click on it and you just see weather guy, audition tape. And something about my TV tape caught Neil Goldstein, who's the one who hired me, his eye. And my agent called and said, there's somebody in Detroit that likes your tape. And I said, okay. And I remember I walked downstairs and I told my wife, I said, because we had been through a lot. We'd been through some opportunities to go other places, and we had turned some down and some hadn't worked out, and we just hadn't found the right thing yet. And didn't know a thing about it other than somebody likes your tape. And I went down and I remember she was in the kitchen and I walked down and I said, there's a news director in Detroit that likes our tape. And she said, okay. I kind of hesitated for a second and I said, you know, this is it, right? And she goes, I know. I mean, there was just something that told me that we were going to Detroit. And I came to Detroit and did the sports, and I did games for Fox for 5 years, from 2000 to 2004. And then 2005, the Lions approached me about leaving the games that I was doing on TV and would you want to do our radio? And it just made every bit of sense in the world to me. And that's how it ended up coming about.
And that's amazing. I feel like making a jump like that is so scary. You know, you're moving state to state and hoping that you're actually going to find a home from this.
It's a great point you make, but it's also inherent in the business. There are many leaps of faith that you have to take, and you have no guarantees of how it's going to work in that city that you maybe move your family to, try to put down roots. And sometimes things are completely out of your control. And I had so many things that lined up well for me in Detroit. And then from my point of view, the hardest thing to do when you go to a new city and you're in TV or even in radio is to say, hey, I'm the new guy, watch me, or hey, I'm the new guy, listen to me. Well, I had a Lions pregame show. I had a Lions postgame show. And then that was when Fox had hockey. So I was moving right from the NFL when the season ended into NHL broadcasts as the Red Wings were on their way to a second Stanley Cup. So whereas a lot of people have to go to a city and try to get people to watch them, I had the eyeballs.
Right.
Through nothing I did. Just because Fox had all these positioned things that gave us eyeballs, I just had to not screw it up. And that's an example of things can go your way that you have no control over,
right,
or things can go against you. There's so many talented people that just end up at a bad news organization and it doesn't work out. And then you end up getting fired with a bunch of other people. Not because of necessarily anything you did, but because maybe the ratings are bad for whatever reason and you just kind of get lumped in. Well, I got lumped in with a great group of people at Fox 2 and really just a rising tide. And I was blessed in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
There's not many people that would have that kind of timing.
So now I want to talk about your game day experience. So when these players come onto the field, it's anyone's game. It can be tied at half, it can be overtime, and you're calling it right there in that moment. What's your game day routine? Do you have a certain prep that you do, something to take care of your voice, a little script, a little line that you love to use every game?
I'd love tips on voice, if anybody's got those out there, because it seems like the end of the year, I'm always losing my voice. But I think you have it's not really a game day routine, it's a game week routine, in particular when you're in the NFL and everything's leading up to a Sunday game. It's the preparation that you do during the week that gets you ready for Sunday. I am a person who loves routine. I love knowing where I'm going to be. And that's a great thing about the NFL. When you play every Sunday, you know where you're going to be on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. Maybe you travel on Saturday, maybe you're home. But whatever the case, it's kind of a really rhythmic thing where I know I'm talking to the coach on Monday, the quarterback on Tuesday, an interview on Thursday. Whatever it is, there's a routine to it. And that kind of allows you to fall into it and not become overwhelmed. And look, I get there at 9:15, 9:30. I have a TV show from 10 to 11. I go to the booth at 11. I start my radio pregame show at 12. We kick it off at 1. We finish at 4. I go to the locker room, do a couple interviews. Then I go back to Fox 2, and we do the late show and start taping a couple segments for that. So I love the routine, and it allows you to just kind of embrace it and not feel like you don't know what's coming next. The game itself, you don't know what's coming, and that's the beauty of it. When it kicks off, you've had 7 days to get ready for it, but it's going to present something you weren't ready for.
Exactly.
It's going to present something that you weren't expecting, and that's your job to just take it in and explain it to the listeners and go from there. But that's what keeps you coming back. If we knew what was going to happen, it wouldn't be a whole lot of fun.
Do you ever get nervous?
I think you feel it. You probably call it nerves. It's funny. I am somebody who I believe in a healthy fear. I believe there's fear that paralyzes and there's fear that motivates. I believe in a fear that motivates. And same boss that hired me, Neil Goldstein, said it to me once, and it explained it. And it's kind of what I had felt as I became more understanding of what this business was. He told me that he woke up every morning afraid. And it wasn't that he was afraid that he was not going to be able to do the job. It was being afraid that somebody else would do it better. And I thought that hits home. It goes lyric to one of the things that I tell people all the time is that you have to be open to the journey. We're so focused on where we want to go. We're at point A and all we can see is point B. Well, what happens between point A and point B is what makes you better. And you have to be paying attention. And what I'd say is what I've learned about myself is the fear and anxiety that I have about doing a game or doing a sportscast is what drives me to prepare. And preparation for me eliminates anxiety and fear because I know I'm ready.
Yeah, exactly. I feel like if you're too comfortable where you are, you're not doing the right thing. Like I was nervous coming into this, but I gathered my information and I'm just talking to you like I've already known you and I'm being myself. And that's really the only thing that you can do in this industry.
Well, you're doing that and you're doing it beautifully. And the thing is that you're prepared. I can see that from your notes there. And that preparation, well, you still have nerves. We all do. That preparation allows you to fall into what you want to do. That realization came to me, and that can be through personal experience. That can be from watching somebody that you admire in this business. How do they act? How do they prepare? What do they do? I've been blessed. I've been around people that have been not just highly successful in this business, but I've been able to watch them and kind of pull things from the way that they do it.
Yes.
And if you don't do that, you're doing it wrong.
Right.
Because if you see somebody that's where you want to be, why are they
No,
there?
exactly.
Why are they there? How did they get there?
Exactly.
What do they do to get there? I used to watch great people and learn from them. And I think that's been a huge help in my career is just watching the people that are doing what I ultimately wanted to do.
Okay, so final thoughts. There are so many kids that are my age in this cutthroat industry that aspire to get somewhere. Do you have like a singular or any advice that's really valuable that you wish you could tell yourself when you were trying to make it big?
I think it's one, there's a lot, and I'll think of 10 after I leave, but be present for the journey. Take in everything that's happening, the good, the bad, the successes, the failures, the rejections. Take in all of it and study it. You have to be your own best critic and your own worst critic because there's not many people out there that are going to jump in to help you.
Right.
I kind of had this vision that along the way, people would sit down with me and say, okay, you need to do this or you need to do that. They don't do that. Always work on yourself. Be your own best and worst critic.
Yeah.
Repetition, doing game after game, doing sportscast after sportscast, doing story after story. At its core, it's about never letting anybody outwork you. Early in your career, you don't count your hours. You don't count your days. You are putting this job in front of everything that you can within good taste. It's such a competitive business that if you're not doing it, never say no. So work hard, be a good person, make yourself better, be your own advocate, your own best and worst critic. All those things I think go into it. And then just keep your eyes open, just learn. It's such an amazing, and this took me a while. I was so goal focused that I wasn't journey focused. And I think as time went on, I became more journey focused. So don't miss out on that because you'll be missing out on so much valuable stuff.
Well, I love your line, if you don't take it, somebody else will, because I firmly, firmly believe that. And to put in the work, I mean, that's how you progress yourself. If you're sitting down on the couch and someone else is on the field, that's your opportunity right there.
There's no doubt.
Well, thank you so much for being here. I'm so grateful that you were my first interview to sit down with. You're amazing. Your
I
passion.
appreciate that. Thank you. I wish you the best of luck. And if this is really your first interview, you are on the way. You did a great job.
Thank you. And if you ever need a silent reporter for the Lions, you know who to call.
I appreciate
Thank you
it.
so much,
Lyric.
Dan.
All right, Lyric Sloan. It's important to get both names in there. Like Dan Miller, you wouldn't just call him Dan. It's got to be Dan Miller.
Right, exactly.
You know,
Johnny
so
Kane.
There it is. So Lyric Sloan, one of the things I took away from listening to your interview with him was, you know, he says, I wake up every day afraid that somebody else could do it better. But that's it, because there's so many people that want to do, you know, they want to be working a sideline, or they want to have a radio show, or they want to do play-by-play. And there are some people that maybe could do it better. And I think that's the thing that you always want to be thinking in your mind is, if you go into a game and just say, well, it's just another game, I got to get through it, you're not giving it everything. And I feel like Dan, every Sunday, gives it everything. You know?
Oh, he does. I mean, there are viral videos of him with hundreds and thousands of likes. People on a Texans game, at an away game, is cheering Dan Miller for 30 seconds. I mean, that is just the love that you want. And I think that's so important, that ultimately there is always going to be someone better than you. But I do believe that that's amazing, because you can take what they give out and you can apply it to yourself. And I totally agree with that statement.
Yeah, I think that's, you know, for any of us, it was forever, however long we are on our journey. But it's like you never lose the fire, right? And you always have to bring it every day. And I think that's part of it. The preparation, as he mentioned too, that's one of the things when people have asked, you know, what is it about doing play-by-play or doing sideline work? Do you get nervous? And I always say, you can if you're ill-prepared. You know what I mean?
No,
like if you don't, it's like going into a test. If you haven't, you know, done the right preparation going in, you walk in there sweating bullets. But it's the preparation that goes into it. And I think, and then once you're prepared and you're not looking down at your notes, then you can just let that passion ride out, you know, during the telecast. So good stuff with Dan Miller, and maybe one day you'll be working the sidelines with him.
That's the goal.
That is the goal.